So, I've been doing some renovations lately to my workshop. Currently, I'm working on some workshop doors, as you can see over here. So, in order for me to come through with all of those angles accurately, I needed a crosscut sled to assist me with that process. So, I made this multifunctional crosscut sled, as you can see over here. It's got multi-layers to it. Let me show you. Come a little bit closer. There's some DIY T-tracks, as you can see here. I've got an angle gauge right here. I've got a flip-up stop lock and even a blade protector. Hi guys, I'm Shaw. Come with me, I'll show you how I made this awesome thing. Welcome to my shop. We'll start things off at the table saw, cutting this MDF sheet to 55 by 40 centimeter dimensions. This will be used as the base for my crosscut sled. Aluminium T-tracks are almost impossible to find here in Swaziland, so I decided to make my own T-tracks with some 4mm plywood. There will be 3 T-tracks that we'll make here today. I marked 4 centimeter wide tracks with the pencil. Then I followed up with the router bit, try and find the center of each track. Then I marked those as well. I used an 18mm straight bit for these grooves that I'm making right here, where the bolt head will be running. So this sled of ours here will have 2 tracks on the left side of the blade and 1 track on the right side. With the bolt head grooves all done, I used the router to find the depth that is needed for the plywood sheet. There will be about a 1 centimeter lip on each side of these grooves. Have you ever seen this awesome drill? It's called the Multi-Evo by Black & Decker. It's got exchangeable attachments. As you can see, I'm using the oscillating attachment to clean up these corners. It's a perfect tool for those DIYers that are still trying to get their feet wet. Here, I'm cutting up the plywood sheet to the length of those tracks that we just made. Then I'll cut them down to these 4 centimeter strips, as you can see. I applied a small bead of glue on the edges. Then I marked up where I'll be putting the countersink holes for the screws. Countersink holes are necessary here so that the screw heads can be embedded in the wood and not interfere with any normal operations of the sled. As I started drilling away, I had an unexpected visitor just to make sure that everything is going well. These strips that you can see him busy testing there in the corner are the ones that I used in my workshop doors. That'll be the next video coming out. Please stay tuned for that one. I think he approves of the quality I'm using, so then he left us. The screws will help clamping down everything for the glue to set properly. So then I started working on the fences for the sled. Still using MDF, I cut 12 centimeter strips for the main fence, then 8 centimeter strips for the back. Then I put glue in between and clamped everything down overnight. Back at the table saw again, we will be cleaning up the glued edges just to make sure that everything is nice and straight. Okay, so you remember in the beginning when I said T-tracks are almost impossible to find here? I found this one specifically at Aluminium Fabricators. They're about 18 millimeters tall, which are not very applicable to normal MDF and plywood. They mostly can work with material that are deeper or taller than 20 millimeters, like in this case. So I decided to apply it here since I won't be using them anywhere else really. I routed out this groove to allow the aluminium T-track to slide inside. And then I used my circular saw to cut it to length so it can fit in, and I finessed the inside with some sandpaper to make sure that it does not put any pressure on the MDF. Then I applied some screws and left it like that. Let's head back to the DIY T-tracks again. I marked the center of the 4 centimeter plywood, then I routed out an 8mm groove to allow an 8mm bolt. I had to make an 18mm hole on the distal end of the sled on all of these tracks. This will allow the bolt head to enter into the track. That 8 centimeter back fence that we made earlier on needs to be shortened, as you can see. It's only there mainly just to align the base since we will be cutting through the base. I applied some glue to the bottom of this fence, followed up with some brad nails to hold the fence in place, and then that allowed me to put the screws easily. Our crosscut sled is starting to take some shape right now. Let's cut some runners for the table saw tracks. I used hardwood in this case since it is less sensitive to weather changes, unlike softwoods like pine. I cut the runners to be snug within these grooves, as you can see, so they don't have any side-to-side movement. Then I applied some nuts inside those tracks to raise those runners that we just put in. This will help when trying to stick the runners to the base sled. So I applied some double-sided tape, as you can see here, to try and stick the runners to the base sled. So I removed the other white part of the double-sided tape, and using the fence I aligned the sled to the runners. Then I put some countersink holes, put in some screws, and we were done. Wood being wood, it tends to expand when we apply some screws into them. This is actually better in this situation, so I can finesse those runners with some sandpaper until they fit snugly. Could you do me a solid and smash that like button for me? It would really help me a lot. So YouTube then can know that my video is useful and it can show it to other people and help my channel grow. Thank you very much for doing that. Almost forgot one vital thing about making a crosscut sled is your front piece or your fence should have a 45-degree groove at the base. This will help for accuracy, specifically for the dust to have a place to go to instead of affecting accuracy. I had to remove my riving knife since it is taller than my blade. It won't be working with my sled. Then I had to set my blade at 90 degrees square. I needed to put some wax on the runners to make sure everything runs smoothly. It's time for our first cut. Pushing the sled slowly, I stopped about 8 centimeters away from the edge. So this is the most important part about building a crosscut sled, the front fence. So the front fence, you need to take your time. You apply one screw to one side. I applied mine to the left side, and then I readjusted to make sure that everything is at 90 degrees. So there's several ways to make sure that your sled is dead square. I won't be doing all of those things. I'll just triple check with my handy dandy square and we're good to go. You do not apply glue on the front fence in case later down the line you need to change or readjust your angle. So I just applied screws once I was satisfied with my 90 degrees and we continued. The sled is basically done at this point. We just need to add a few accessories to make sure that everything is proper. So we'll start with our angle gauge, as you can see here. Using my 8mm router bit, I cut a groove throughout the wood, just leaving 5 centimeters on each side. I applied some 8mm bolts into the T-tracks, and using some washers and wing nuts, we were done. At this point, I was able to start working on my workshop doors. FYI, my channel just surpassed 100 subscribers! If you're really enjoying this content, I would really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button and continue supporting me. We will all learn together. I've got way more interesting videos coming up soon. Thank you very much. These blocks that I was just cutting now are for the blade protector. So I glued and nailed them together. This is where it will be placed. I decided to apply some nails in the block as a daily reminder to never ever touch or hold this area when cutting. So I nailed them all in, then I came back with a grinder to cut them all, to cut off the heads to make them a bit sharpish. Once all the nails were hammered in, I applied some glue to the cube and mounted it to the crosscut sled where the blade will come out. And then I put some pressure with a clamp and I left it overnight to set. One more accessory to go. Now we need to make up our flip-up stop block. It's mostly made from two pieces, one which is 4 by 4 centimeter, another is 2 by 12 centimeter. But as you can see here, you measure according to what kind of sled you have and so on, and your measurements. So it'll flip up like this. So here we need to make one hole that will go through both of these pieces where they meet. So the drill press is the best tool to use in that case. I will need to make an angle on the flipper part so it doesn't hit the fence whenever it comes up. So I had to put a washer in between all the moving parts to make sure that there's no friction and things like that. I drilled a hole on the block to allow an 8mm thread to pass through. I added some red accent colors on the stop block as well as the safety block. Following this, we went on to applying oil finish. Hi again. You still here? You're a star. Here's some other videos of mine that I know you like. Check them out.